Senna, you do the intro this time.
Oh shit. Um, I fucking blue screening. I don't know what to do. Okay. So, do you have an unpopular opinion about BL? Don't worry, we probably do too. Saying all of the things you do or don't want to hear, part 5 of 4 is here to engage with BL media from Japan, Thailand, China, Korea, and wherever else we feel like. We're talking about filmmaking techniques. We're talking about narrative analysis and fandom woes, and asking the really important questions like, why aren't the bottoms moving their arms? So we may not be experts, but we are loud and chaotic and full of opinion.
That was fantastic. That was so much better than whenever I've done the intro. Folks, leave a comment on this episode about like how much better that intro was than any of mine. Bless.
It's just like my many years of high school theater training coming up from the ether.
This is what Shakespeare wanted. This is what he wanted.
So now you get to tell the people what we're talking about this episode.
I do. So, hey, folks, we are at the end of the year, which is absolutely bonkers, phenomenally fucking crazy. We are going to be in 2025. So, this episode, we wanted to do a reflection of 2024, of just all the queer media that we've watched, read, and just engaged with overall, and also talk about some of the things that we've seen in fandom this year, because it just feels like 2024 for the genre of BL and GL really was a year of so much. Just so much happened.
So many strong opinions expressed very loudly.
Yes, very, very strong opinions. And a lot of shows came out. A lot of shows.
A lot of shows came out.
We tried watching many. Well, no, I'm not going to lie to y'all. I tried watching a few.
What's funny is I have like a long list of ones that I started and haven't finished, but like that I actually do want to go back to and finish, and not just ones where I tried it and I was like, I can't live like this. Like, what's the fucking one with the Gawain in it? Love Writer?
Oh, Lovely Writer?
Lovely Writer. I got 17 minutes into that and was like, I can't do
How
this.
dare, that is a BL classic, I say with a slash
It's such a waste
sarcasm.
of Gawain, who was always such a good time, and then he's always so delightfully Pennsylvanian in the behind the scenes stuff, and I always forget that he's Pennsylvanian, and it's, you know, it's a Pennsylvania jump scare.
I got through 7 episodes of Lovely Writer, and I hated it. If we were ever going to do another hype or overhyped episode, we should do Lovely Writer so I can talk about how much I did not like that show. And just get banned from fandom, as I'm just working towards. But we're not gonna talk about that. We do actually have a list of picks of shows.
And there were some beautiful highs this year, I will say. The stuff that I liked, I really, really liked, and I'll take that.
So do you want to start us off?
Sure. So, obviously on my faves list are like stuff that we've already talked about in an episode. I'm not going to go like too deeply into. Like, unambiguously, my favorite show of this year was Playboy. I love everything about the show. I like the story, I like the characters, I like the really cool production design and set choices that were made. I love the writing, I love how tight it is, I love that it has such great rewatchability, and I love that we're getting another fucking series. So, hopefully 2025, maybe 2026 will bring like the next round. Honestly, when that thing went out where they were talking about like the top shows of the year and it was Pit Babe, Playboy, and Unknown, I was like, validation, my taste is impeccable and I'm never wrong about anything.
Like, I can't remember what poll or what like stats that came from exactly. But yes, when they dropped the announcement, and we haven't dropped the Playboy episode by the time folks are listening to this, but we do have a Playboy episode.
And I forgot that we promised we'd do a part 2 of that too, to where we more talked about like the show itself.
Yeah, because we spent a lot of time talking about like the filmmaking and also like fandom's reaction to the show, which I definitely think Playboy got a really weird and bad rap from fandom. And yet we are getting a season 2. So
we are. I think so Gaga Ooh La La, where Playboy was streaming, was like breaking records for them, like in terms of streaming.
Yeah.
Which was very validating when so much of the like fandom opinion was like, the show is gross and nasty and no one is watching it. Wrong.
Like, it very much feels like Captain Holt, Brooklyn Nine-Nine Vindication.gif.
I use that gif so often when I talk about that show. I'm so smug about it. So yeah, Playboy. We have a whole episode about it. Hopefully we'll have a part 2 where we just talk more about like the characters in the show and the mystery. It'll be great. And then kind of in there with Playboy, like the other highlight for me was Pit Babe, of course. I really like Pit Babe. It's another one where I really like the cast. It's never going to stop being funny to me that they just lied about the Omegaverse part. Just like, I've never heard of Omegaverse. I don't know this man. And then the first episode, it's immediately like, you're Alpha Sent. It's the funniest possible way that they could have handled it. I think it's hilarious and I respect them immensely for it. So, yeah, I love the mix of like evil Professor X power stuff with like the weird found family stuff. I love the cast too. Like, they're all great and they're also very like funny and charming behind the scenes, which I don't care about as much, but it's nice. And they're also getting another series, and that one has like a pitch trailer. Me and other people in the group chat are manifesting someone on that show will be knocked up by the end of series 2. Don't be coward, Pit Babe. Embrace your genre. We deserve this.
Like, I was not as much of a fan of Pit Babe as you were, and yet I am still so rooting for someone to get knocked up. Like, I am right there. I am manifesting it with y'all. Like, I am in the bleachers cheering this on.
And I love this energy from you so much. This is how I feel about One Piece, where I'm like, it's not for me, but like it is beloved of my dear friend, so I want it to succeed.
I appreciate that so much, because I'm so mad that I'm into One Piece. I will forever be salty about it, about how much I deeply love that show, considering I don't watch a lot of TV shows. But anyway, continue with your list. Awesome choices to start off with.
Thank you. And then my other like favorite television show of the year, I went with Unknown, which I believe was a Taiwanese production, I think. I'm almost positive it was. Anyways, so Unknown is an adaptation of I think it's called Dage, as the name of the title of the danme, by Priest, who also wrote, what else has Priest written? Roten? What else has Priest written?
Far Away Wanderers.
Faraway Wanderers, which became
Word of Honor.
Word of Honor. I'm doing great. She also wrote Guardian too. She's very prolific. So this show kind of surprised me because kind of looking at the synopsis of it, I was like, yeah, it seems fun, but it seems like kind of a family drama, and those don't always super grab me. Like one of my favorite shows this year was like Two Pit, Two Babe. Like I like a racing car. And then this show, just like every single minute of it is so deft and so well constructed. And like, I actually cried watching the show a couple of times just because like the emotions were so much. And also, I'm also an oldest sibling, deeply burdened with the responsibility of dealing with my younger siblings without the, sleeping with the step sibling thing. Not step sibling, adopted sibling, whatever.
It's very ambiguous.
It was very ambiguous. They're sworn brothers, basically the same thing as being blood brothers. So yeah, so Unknown, just very brief synopsis. It is about a family that has an older brother and a little sister, and in the middle there is like their Dick Grayson, like their orphan that just kind of like followed them home one day, and they're like, great, you're part of the family now. And it is about like growing up and obviously falling in love. It ends up being a romance between like the eldest brother and the adopted one. And it's not just a romance. It's so much a romance about like falling in love, but also like allowing yourself to have things that make you happy when your whole life has been about sacrifice, about seeing worth in yourself, about making choices that scare you, about being open to things that could hurt, but could also be wonderful. It's a fantastic cast. It's really well filmed, like not in like a super flashy way, but like it has such like an aura to it, I would say. And the chemistry between characters is absolutely phenomenal, and one of my new favorite little sisters in all of BL. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. I loved it.
I was really excited to see this on your list because this was one of my favorites this year as well. And it's filmed in a way that's both very competent while still retaining a real like stylistic kind of rustic appeal to it, in my opinion. I liked Taiwanese BLs because they know how to use their budget, which is usually pretty small.
Yes.
Another fave of mine from Taiwan is Kiseki, Dear to Me. And it's such a silly bonker show, but it's very sincere.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't have a big production value. They cannot film a fight scene because they clearly just don't have the budget for it.
No, there's nothing left for fake blood after ID's sweaters. It was all blown on ID's
They could
sweaters.
not afford like a stunt coordinator and stuff, but they repurposed like their budget to like their costumes and such. And Dear to Me had great costumes, and I felt like The Unknown also had really good costuming. And I just yeah, it's a more low stakes kind of quiet BL, which I felt like is a really good adaptation of the tone of Priest's work.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. I think too, like it does such a a good job, I think, of sort of making like the place another character in a way. So like their apartment house is so like integral to who they are and how they relate to each other. Like there's a very specific orientation of like the bedrooms upstairs where you see people going back and forth and in and out and popping out and listening. And it's so well used to like create character through the use of this house that is, just a house. It shows that they don't have a ton of money, but there's a lot of care. And I really, really enjoyed that.
I did too. And it also has some of like my favorite comedic moments.
The whole like going into the kitchen to get a knife thing to stab the sister's
Boyfriend, oh,
boyfriend is so fucking funny.
it's so funny. Like the actor's comedic timing is just it's so good. Like that and the sonogram scene where he finds out that his little sister's pregnant by the boyfriend and he like puts her hands over her ears and he just goes
Yeah.
and his boyfriend has to pull him away and stuff and he's like, I'm gonna get my knife, I'm gonna get my where's my knife, and I'm like, that as a Latin I felt all of that in my soul very deeply. That shit got
They're
me.
just like hiding the knives
Yes.
afterwards just in
So
case.
funny.
So good. So yeah, that was my other like favorite filmed TV show of this year. And then moving into things that are not TV shows, because I feel very strongly about including BL stuff that's not just TV shows. So, like you said, this isn't necessarily stuff that only came out this year, but this year, I read Remnants of Filth, which is a Danmei by Meat Bun, also noted for Husky and His White Cat Shizun, and which I have also read and loved, and then like Case File Compendium, which I have not read. So Remnants of Filth, oh my god, it's so good. It is about this guy who was a general in this country who had a beloved friend and boyfriend partner who was also a general, but he was from like the streets, who betrayed his country after initially unspecified wrongs were done to him, who our main general finds like stashed in like the world's weirdest fucking brothel,
Not stashed.
and is just like, I hate him so much. I must express my hatred of him by moving him into my house so I can hate him directly every minute of the day. It's so good. It's such an interesting premise. Like so much Danmei is obviously about the like you meet and then they like each other and then drama and bullshit and flutes and zombies and and then they come
Flutes.
together in the end and they kiss. There's so many flutes. It's a lot of fluting, okay? And this one I love because like there's this past relationship, like where they were like lovers and they were having sex and they were very close, and then it's all been shattered. So it's absolutely fantastic. I've loved every minute of it. In like the most recent volume, I think we even get into like sex pollen. There's a really strong cast of like side characters and friends, and they have like their own fail son, who's like my favorite stock character in Danmei, the like younger loser child, like Jinling and Feathery Bangs. Like there's always like the younger loser child. I love them. And I don't want to spoil it, but like then you find out that like there were reasons for betrayal that are much deeper than they seem, and there were secrets and lies, and I really love it. So I think the first five, I want to say, no, so the first four volumes are out, and the fifth one is coming out shortly. So yes, Highly recommend Remnants of Filth. I also read Husky and His White Cat Shizun this year as well, which I also enjoyed immensely. For it's kind of bringing the same energy as like a Scum Villain Self Saving System, but like flipped, where the person who's getting another go is the student. It's also wonderful, very very fun.
I loved Husky. Like I've only gotten through volumes 1 and 2, and I'm really excited to read the rest. I have Remnants of Filth Volume 1, and I've been wanting to read it, and I just haven't had the time. So I'm really excited to read it, especially with like your endorsement. And I like Meat Bun's writing. Like
I do
I like
too.
their work.
Like, Meat Bun is just fun to read.
Yes, like it's they just they're balls to the walls, man. Like, they just feel like a playlist that I can shake my ass to is the way I feel about their work.
Yeah, and like I have I don't know if she has other stuff than just the 3 that are like available officially in English, but I like that like her characters tend to have sex a little sooner than like in other Danme. I like that her characters are kind of allowed to be mean and shitty to each other and then still work it out. Like I like that her it's not like a necessarily a smooth ride. It's often butting heads and being mad and having to forgive people and looking at your life and looking at your choices. And she does it in such a fun way. Then my last pick for this year is Painter of the Night, which is a bonkers, fucking bonkers comic that is about a nobleman who's a libertine, if we're gonna put it really mildly, and then like the tiny little twink fucking porn painter that he finds and is immediately obsessed with for like how many episodes is it? Like 130 episodes of this comic. You recommended this one to me, and you told me very much. You very much were like, it's a lot, like it's intense, like the fucking nobleman is deranged, and I was like, yeah, absolutely, and I still was not prepared for how fucking deranged.
Oh, he's great. I do, and this one is on my list as well. Because it ended this year. Like it completed its run this year. And I just for comics, especially for webtoons, they tend to be very, 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 very long, you know. And I love comics. I'm a big comic reader, period. But like webtoons in particular are a little difficult for me to read because I don't like vertical scrolls personally. I prefer like I'm old school. I prefer to have the book in my hand, I guess. But Painter of the Night. I always want to say Painter by the Night, like or Painter by Night, like. But Painter of the Night. What attracted me to it originally was the artwork.
It's gorgeous art. It's absolutely stunning art.
The artwork is so so good, and it's very unique from other webtoons that I've read. And I read all sorts of webtoons across the board in genres and such. But what I really liked about this one in particular was its use of texture and color. A lot of webtoons, if you kind of look through them, the colors are very flat. They don't have a lot of depth to them, probably because people are doing like a specific sort of digital type of coloring. And this comic in particular, has a very like a it almost looks like watercolors at sometimes, like at certain points. And the line work is a lot lighter and a lot thinner than a lot of other webtoons, which kind of favor like a more thick line work. And all these little things, like there's just such small details, and not every episode is going to be like this like crazy high level, because webtoons are very very difficult, and a lot of them have to be delivered like weekly. It's a very very difficult process. But Painter by the Night, like overall, it's the artwork is just so captivating to me, and I love their use of color, and I love their use of like texture. It looks like it's almost been like painted on a page, really, like at certain points. And the story is a lot. It's
It's a
it's gonna
lot.
be one of those.
It's hashtag
It's
problematic.
yes, yes, and I
Like
definitely
it's kind of Beauty and the Beast. Like A little bit.
Oh, that fuck ass scholar. Uh, if you know, you know. um, but yeah, like I found just the because with webtoons, this is how I feel about comics in general, but especially like the longer comics and such. I love one watching an artist their skill set grow. It's one of my favorite things about comics is watching how their art changes and develops over time. And then I also love just seeing how like the story develops cuz especially for kind of weekly comics, if you read a lot of manga, you probably already know this, but a lot of times creators because they're going on that weekly basis, they have only like a bare bones kind of outline rather than like a really robust, like Stephen King-esque like novelist-esque outline where it's like every little point is, plotted out. That's why you get like lots of arcs and such. And I really liked just kind of seeing the progression of their relationship in the story because they honestly go through so much.
They go through so much. And it's also like I always like stories where it's very freak for freak. And what I love about this comic is that it tells you up front that the painter is a freak. Like he's known for drawing like gay porn. Like that's his career. But then he like you kind of forget about that at the beginning because he's still like me. I would never. I've never. I can't. What? And then eventually get to the point where he's like, oh, unfortunately now I just want to fuck you all the time. I can't even live like this. And I love that. Like in terms of the art too, like two of the things I really love, I love the way skin is colored, which is great because they are naked a lot. But there's like they get like a very like beautiful like flushedness to skin, so it feels very like you can tell a character is like physically hot. Like it's really beautiful, and I don't see it in like comics ever generally. And also perfect expressions. Absolutely fantastic facial expressions that manage to convey an emotion that I couldn't even describe with words. Especially from the fucking deranged nobleman. Like some of the faces he makes when people like contradict him or he's really turned on, they're amazing. They're like I have one of them as like the lock screen on my iPad just because it makes me laugh every time I look at it.
Yeah, truly, like the expressions are really, really well done. I totally agree with that. I'm so glad you brought that up because there are just certain scenes, especially when he's just like hit his beast mode of
Yes.
derangement, and it's just great. Like it's just fun. Like, and it's a period piece too. Like it's
It
set in
is.
like
There's my favorite like some of my favorite little hats that ever pop up
yes.
in historical. Really like Korea really had like a lock on like the fun little hat game.
Yeah, and then there's the whole class differential too that I see played a lot, and I liked that aspect as well. And it was cool to see the fruition of this very long running comic. I would argue that probably Painter of the Night is one of the most popular like webtoons.
I think it is the top one on so I watched it on Lesion, I don't know how you say it, US. And last time I like was reading it, I think it was like the number 1 ranked of like the site.
Yes, yeah, because I follow the creator on their Twitter, and they're very funny. I can't obviously I don't speak or read Korean, but from what Google Translate translates for me, they are very funny. They also drew Kingdom fan art with their two characters.
Oh, that's the other thing I was gonna say. I love creative people who would get fun and silly with their own work, and creators' willingness to like draw these two in fucking cosplay of other shows is one of my favorite things about them.
Yes, yes. And Kingdom is one of my favorite like Korean shows of pretty much all time because I mean it's a zombie TV show for folks that don't know. It's on Netflix. It's got 2 seasons and a prequel movie. It is phenomenal. I recommend it to everybody that I know that is willing to watch anything with zombies and or horror. And they drew fan art with their characters from Painter of the Night with two characters that I also shipped from the show, like in cosplay. It was great. It was great. But yeah, So Painter by the Night, yeah, I really recommend that. That was definitely one of my favorite things that I read this year. Yeah, that was kind of my thoughts on it. I don't want to cut you off on your thoughts. Like if you had any.
No, I have a couple like honorable mentions that I just kind of wanted to throw out there, like stuff that I liked that I don't know didn't make the cut. So obviously other things I like this year would be like Dead Friends Forever. We did a whole episode about that. It was wonderful, perfect. I stand by everything I said. The Sign was also really good. I think The Sign didn't totally nail the ending, and I didn't love the special episode, but I still enjoyed it immensely. I loved the mythological elements of it and the really great fucking sex scenes in that show. What else? What else was good? I also liked We Are. That's kind of my like GMMTV.
We're gonna put a pin in that. We're definitely gonna discuss that later.
So I really liked We Are. Not all of the couples totally captivated me, but I really liked the older brother and God's perfect extrovert. It was just a good watch. It was another very low stakes, like family, friends in college being gay and falling in love and shit. It was fun. I liked it. What else? Love for Love's Sake, which is a Korean like isekai story where a guy gets put into like a video game, falls in love, has feelings. Really love that one. A lot of fun. Also has the one instance I've ever seen of like someone having a bisexual awakening and then still getting shot down, which is very funny. What else was good? I also really like Love Sea. I like Fort and Pete, and I like Mame. Like no one's shocked. But Love Sea was a lot of fun. What else? Oh, and then one that I watched this year that I is not from this year that I really liked. Is a Japanese BL called "End of the World with You," and it is about these two guys who dated in college, I think it was, and broke up spectacularly. And now that there's an asteroid coming to hit Earth, now they're like together for like the last 7 days that will the Earth will ever have. I really like that one. It was a lot of fun. And I'm watching Jack and Joker right now, and I'm enjoying that immensely.
I didn't realize so much came out this year. Like I'm listening to your list and I'm like, oh, I liked that one. I liked that one. I'm like, fuck, did they all come out this year? Yeah, I guess I have much less on my list just by the fact that like one, I don't watch a lot of shows. I try so hard, but like
But there's 700 episodes of One Piece to watch.
don't call me out. Um all right, look. My friend gave me their Crunchyroll account. I had a lot of catching up to do. Okay, I had an entire Wano arc to catch up on, and that was like 300 episodes. Okay, like, and they were all amazing. And then I had to watch the movies, and that was also really
Of
fun.
course.
Just sitting here at my desktop in shame. So yeah, and then the second part of it is like I'm really picky. I'm such a fucking pretentious film
Yes.
person. So like
What's your favorite movie again?
oh, so there's so I don't know. Don't ask me that at the
Is
moment. I
is
can't.
it Jason X?
That's one of my favorite Friday movie. That is one of my favorite Friday movies. Jason X is so fucking funny. Like, all right, like that's taste. Okay, it was filmed on a Power Rangers set, like mixed with some Star Trek sets. All right, they just cobbled them
It is
together.
definitely the movie you have most frequently brought up to me.
Like my pen pal will text me, and once they texted me, and they were like, "Do you like watch Good Things?" And I'm like, I was very hurt by that because I couldn't argue against it.
It's good to me.
Like I watch plenty of good things. Don't talk to me. Whatever, guys. Like I was one of like the 16 people that saw the Green Knight in the movies, okay? All right. I don't want to hear
I
it.
also saw The Green Knight. I saw The Green Knight twice in theaters, actually.
Nice. Like
It's so
it was
good.
so good, and I will never go with the group that I went with again, except for like my one friend because
Oh no.
they were
Okay.
very confused. They were like, I thought it'd be like Gladiator or something, and I was like, what?
Oh, baby, no. Oh, honey. No, it's not like that.
I was like, okay, my you're not my friend, so somebody set your expectations up to fail. That's not my fault. But yeah, so I don't have a ton on my list just because I am a little picky, and for me, like I don't often put things into like categories of this was the best. Like the whole what's your favorite movie question is actually very difficult for me because I judge films on different kind of parameters. You know, like Jason X is one of my favorite movies, but it's trash garbage. Like, and Titanic, I think, is one of probably the best films I've ever watched on the big screen. But I don't know if I would say it's my favorite. You know,
Yeah, I mean, like, Schindler's List is a beautiful movie that made me cry. I don't know that I would call it my favorite movie.
oh god, yeah, I feel that way about Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh god, no,
Yes,
never
yes,
again.
exactly. Like
Never again.
beautiful film, beautifully animated, beautifully directed, beautifully written. But like I've watched it twice, and that's kind of like enough. But yeah, so I try to like follow that kind of like Roger Ebert school of thought, where like he judged films on like what their goals were and if they accomplished their goals. Which is why I love the fact that he gave Space Jam like 3 stars and he gave Godfather Part Two like 2.5 stars or something like that. It's amazing to me.
I think his review of The Mummy is also like the most accurate description of what I like about The Mummy, where it's like, I don't know if the script makes sense. I don't know if it's good. You know, especially now in 2024, we probably wouldn't be casting Rachel Weisz to play a half Egyptian woman, but it makes me so happy. Like, there are just so many moments where I'm like, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like, so when I was kind of putting together my list, like, one, I had to figure out what I actually had like watched this year or like read this year and whatnot. And then which ones of those like I felt like were really good and then also like that made me happy. And like what I came up with Painter of the Night was definitely one of them just because it was a comic that I had been sticking with for a very long time and like I said I loved the artwork and I really liked the story and it was such a culmination of everything and I thought the ending was really strong. And then another thing that like burrowed into my brain this year was a movie called Taboo and it's it's a Japanese movie from 1999. So I know the youths are like, "Oh my god, it's vintage," but it's fascinating. Like I watched it once and I would love to I'm trying to find like a DVD copy because I would love to watch this movie like again and again because like the more I thought about it, the more I kind of was like thinking about it in different ways. So the story is basically it takes place during I believe like the 18th century of Japan and it's about the Senshingumi. And if you're like an anime fan, you probably know or if you're a Kurosawa fan or you just like samurai shit, you probably know who the Senshingumi are and they're basically like a like the group of samurai, you know? And
And these are like the real guys, right?
yes,
Like, it's
yeah,
not
that's
fictionalized. Okay, yeah. Very important. These are like actual real people.
it's historical in the same way that like a Queen Elizabeth movie is historical. Like they're real people.
Yeah.
But is it
But who's to
accurate?
say what's actually happened? This could be real.
So, but the film is about like the Senshingumi is looking for new recruits. And they find these two new dudes, and one of these dudes, I think his name is Kano or Kano. He's like really fucking pretty. Like, and all the other samurai are just down bad like instantly. And Beat Takeshi is in this film, and he is also like down bad. Like, there's a whole scene where his character, who's another historical figure, is looking at Kano and is like focusing on his lips and focusing on his eyes, and like he's got like the most subtle eyeliner. Like, and I'm like, that's probably not historically accurate, but I understand like the vibes that we're going for. And
I mean, honestly, eyeliner is one of the oldest like makeup things like in history. So like
so maybe it
it's
is.
it's
Like maybe
entirely possible that it could be.
but yeah, so he basically like all of these other samurai start like pursuing him and it's got like a erotic 90s thriller tone to it and the plot is very much in line with like a 90s erotic thriller and you basically don't know if Kano is a spy and if he's like trying to kind of dismantle this the samurai internally by causing discord because a big theme that Beat Takeshi's character talks about a lot is like you can like want to bone him down, like, but you can't fall in love with Kano. Like that's the big thing, like because love is like the death of duty type of thing, and the ending is very ambiguous on like was he a spy was he not there's murders that happened did he kill these people did he not was it someone else that killed them and they don't give you any clear cut answers, which I feel like would be very, very frustrating for some people. But for me, it set my little brain afire. The cinematography is gorgeous. I think the direction is also just really well done. Like the director is very prolific. He has one of my favorite quotes that I've ever read of all time, where he talked about Japanese businessmen, and this is a paraphrase. So I'll link the actual like interview and quote in the description and such on our reading further page. But he talks about like why did Japanese businessmen do like work overtime? It's because they want to be around other men. It's very homoerotic. Like don't lie to yourselves. And I was like, damn.
It's also something that's actually very interesting too. Just like I didn't watch this one, but I watched Kubi, which is same guys. Like just very interesting examples of like when a society is so like sex separated that you cycle around to homoeroticism because women are so removed from men, and if you only think you can have meaningful deep relationships with men, then yeah, you're going to end up with men fucking each other.
Like it's misogynistic, and then like like you're so misogynistic, you just wrap back around to being homosexual. Like
What it kind of reminded me of in the vibe, oddly, is a little bit of Oz, which is a HBO TV show that's set in a prison, where there was a lot of that too, of where it's like, well, there are no women to fuck, so men will fuck each other.
Oz is such a deep cut that the youths won't get either. Uh,
Oz is such a deep cut.
uh, yeah, if you guys want to see Stabler from SVU show lots of things, watch Oz. But yeah, I really loved Taboo. That was definitely a film I watched this year that like I want to own the physical copy so badly, and it just burrowed into my brain. And like especially because it takes place I think like 4 5 ish years before the Sensengumi like disbanded. So it was also like this through line of like because they talk about classism in the film, like that's a thematic, and that's a thematic in a lot of this director's work as well. Other folks might know his other movie, Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, I think it's called, with David Bowie. Beat Takeshi is also in that one. Beat Takeshi's actually, because Beat Takeshi was in Kubi too. Like he's been in a lot of like queer films, and he directed Kubi. Like
Did you
yeah, he
really?
directed it. He was like, what if the reason why Nobunaga got overthrown was because one of his vassals was mad jealous of him and his twink? Like
Kubi does also have one of the funniest moments in any movie I watched this year, which is like the main guy just having to kneel there while Nobunagi is absolutely railing his twink, and he just is sitting there like dissociated. Like, this is not my beautiful samurai sword. This is not my beautiful Japan. And it's very
I
funny.
remember describing that scene to you, and you texted me back, and you
Yeah,
were like, "I was not prepared." I was-
it's so funny. Just like the look on his face. It's just so funny.
Neither of these films, by the way, are happy endings. I should clarify, just in case anybody thinks they are. They
No.
are not at all. I think Kubi is. I didn't love Kubi. I loved the direction. I loved the costumes, especially the costume designer was actually Kurosawa's daughter or granddaughter. I think it was his granddaughter. So that was cool. Because from what I've read, Beat Takeshi actually maybe knew Kurosawa. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I've read that somewhere. But Kubi is was very very harsh. I'd say Taboo is. I'm gonna stick with my '90s erotic thriller. To me, like that's very much.
That's fair. It's kind of like, do you want to watch Cruel Intentions or, Gladiator? Like
That's a really good comparison. So okay, so that was one of them, and then another series that I read this year. This is a comic. This is a Korean webtoon. It was called Taming the Tiger, and how do I explain this? It has a similar vibe that Painter of the Night has, without like the art styles are very different. I would say Taming the Tiger is more of like the mainstream webtoon style art. Thicker lines, more like flat, like solid coloring and such. But the nobleman in this one is also very deranged. He's just the bottom this time. And it also deals with like class and such, because basically this nobleman he goes off and he finds himself a butcher. And I don't know much about, because it's another time period, it's another period piece. So I don't know much about this time period exactly as far as like, Korean history goes. But from this comic, butchers are apparently like very low class and they're kind of looked down upon and kind of seen as like bad luck. So he finds a butcher, and it's, the tallest, hottest dude in this butcher village, because of course. And he brings them back to his estate and stuff. And situations abound, as they fall in love and things like that. And I like how it plays on the dynamics in a lot of different ways. Like, you know, one character being rich, the other character being like poor, the way the sex is, and like, how their dynamic switches in that sort of sense. How they slowly grow to like really actually care about each other and such. All like crushing nature of being repressed in that society, and like not being able to make your own choices because of like your family ties is a big plot point as well. Like there's this whole subplot with the nobleman's younger brother who's sick, and like he can't be let out, and he's kind of smothering the younger brother, and he slowly learns to like let that go and such. And yeah, they go through a lot of situations, and I just found the relationship really compelling. It's one of those that definitely like lingered with me. The ending honestly actually made me cry. Like I was reading it at like fucking 4 in the morning, because that's my life. These are the choices I decide to make, and like it's bittersweet. I wouldn't say that it's tragic. I guess, spoiler alert, they do both die. But they die of like natural causes. They just die young. And they die like, one character dies first and the other character kind of just follows. And I thought that was just like really beautiful, like in the way it happened and the way it occurred. I know people are going to be like, ew, gross, like they both die. Don't worry, there's an epilogue of side stories where they're reincarnated into the modern world. Like, and the nobleman wears lingerie. So like we all win still in the end, But like the actual ending, I I like me a bittersweet ending if it's done well. And I did feel like that was done. Like I could have that could have been the end without the epilogue for me, and I would have still been really satisfied. I did enjoy the epilogue and the side stories of them like being reincarnated and stuff, and then being kind of like on more equal terms, like within a modern day society, they're able to be like open about the relationship. There's another subplot where the nobleman's mom was actually in love with one of her servants, who's also a woman. So there's even some like side yuri, which was really
Oh,
cool,
hey.
actually. They don't play a huge role, but it
Love
was really
that.
cool. His mom is dead by that point, and again, it was just kind of like this through line of like generational things and like that repression and such that I really liked. But they get their happy ending in the epilogue, so it's fine, guys. It's fine. And then the last one, the last series, this was the big one for me. Was 4 minutes.
It's so good.
Like out of all the series that I actively watched this year, and I've watched more than I thought I did, and I do have some honorable mentions. I did love a lot of stuff on your list too, but for me, 4 minutes was just it. Like it was the filmmaking alone sold me. Like as a film nerd, I was just enthralled.
It's
Like
beautiful.
I loved the aspect ratio that they filmed it in because it gave it such a cinematic look. I loved the coloring, like the color grading of a lot of the scenes, and how they changed. I loved the like fisheye lens that they would
Yeah, I was about to
use.
say they use like very well placed and subtle camera effects.
Hmm.
So it just kind of like sparkles on the edge of your vision that this looks a little bit weird.
Yeah, they definitely knew how to use an aperture. I think I'm saying that correctly. I think we might have talked about this briefly in like an earlier episode, like what that is. So basically, it's the amount of light that will come through like your camera lens, and it will blur things out. So in 4 minutes, like there are certain scenes that are blurred out more on the edges and other ones that aren't. And it's one of those series where like I'll go back and watch just to catch stuff like that, because I love stuff like that. Like I love a show that will challenge me, and I love a show that where like I can rewatch it and pick out things even if I know the ending, or I can be like, "Oh my god, like okay, I missed that the first time around." or I didn't notice this in the background the first time around. That stuff I just absolutely love. Like to me, that's what makes a show like rewatchable.
Do you want to give like a brief synopsis of what it's about?
I wouldn't. How do I summarize this show? Help me out here. I'm not really sure.
So, 4 minutes is about a guy named Great who wakes up one day and can suddenly see 4 minutes into the future. It is not as simple as that. It is a show where there are multiple timelines and multiple versions of events. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all you could say without super spoiling it. Primary love interest is a doctor named Time who has like some like deep kind of traumatic connections to Great. And then there's also kind of the secondary couple is Great's older brother who is being put in a position of like power and having to do real shady shit as part of the family business. His older brother's secret boyfriend, who to me kind of stole the show a little bit. And then there's also Inspector Meow Meow, but he's you know. So yeah, it's so good. Like Salmon is so good at constructing plots in ways that unfold really
Hmm.
beautifully. And this one was just so tightly done and so good.
Yeah, it's by the same screenwriter as Manner of Death, and
Wrote Triage too.
that was the other one. Yes, yes.
Yes. And she worked on Dead Friends Forever.
And it's from the same studio as Kin Porsche and Dead Friends Forever. So Beyond Cloud. I always want to put a the in there, and I'm like, that's not a part of it. But it's from BOC, and I feel like I've made it no like surprise to anybody that's been listening that I am quite a fan of BOC's like filmography thus far. Even the stuff that I haven't loved, like I didn't love the movie that came out. The plot was thinner than it needed to be. I feel like the film should have been like maybe 30 minutes longer.
Yeah. I wanted it to be more about Tong's character.
Yes, honestly, yeah.
Like I wanted
Um,
it more about Tong's character.
very controversial opinion, but like I feel like the film could have cut out Miles' character and been better for it and been more streamlined.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
probably. He's
so
trying.
yeah, like that's the type of take that'll get us harassed on Twitter. Um, But even though I didn't love the story of the film, I loved the filmmaking of the film and I love the acting. And I like that in BOC projects, I get to see these actors act, which sounds like an oxymoron and, like shade against other studios. And it's not meant to be. It's just that I tend to find a lot of takes in fandom a little overblown on how good some of these actors are. And it's not even necessarily them so much as like the scripts that they are given. And I compare it to oh god, I can't believe I'm gonna say this. I compare it to Glee because hear me out, hear me out.
Okay. Tell me why it's like Glee.
Because look, the youth probably didn't watch Glee, which bless your souls, you don't bother. But for those of us who did, like the thing of it was, you had a lot of actors on that show, period. But you had a lot of actors that actually were pretty good actors. We tell they were good actors because some of the stories and some of the lines that they had to deliver were absolutely fucking stupid. Like I will never forget because it was such a bad episode. But Amber Riley, who played Mercedes, had to she had a whole episode where she was just her character was just in love with tater tots, and
Oh
like
god. Oh, come
the
on.
point of the episode was that she was supplementing like being distant from her bestie because he got a boyfriend with tater tots, and it was that if you think that sounds stupid, it was worse in
Honestly, kind of
motion.
relatable as a high school thing though. Like
Like yeah, so and you're watching this and you're like, this is garbage. And she's trying so hard to make it work. Like, and I know she can act because I've seen her with better storylines acting a lot better. And I saw like actors that would go on, like Darren Chris was in this show, and he had a lot of moments where he just was overacting. But he went on to win an Emmy for his work on American Crime Story. And
he
I
was amazing
watched
in that one.
yeah, he was really good. So when it comes to acting, it really depends on like the director and the script. There's a lot more factors in an actor's performance than I think people realize.
Mhm.
So like to go back to the BL of it all, it's just that I see a lot of scripts where like they're not actually challenging the actors and they kind of are playing the same roles over and over and over again, and they start to develop bad acting habits. This isn't like just BL either.
No, like you see the same thing in like long running procedurals, like Supernatural, especially. Like you can kind of see Jensen Ackles, especially, start to get bored with it toward the end. Like it's just the repetition of it. If you're doing something for 15 years, eventually it's gonna, you know, phone it in a little.
Yeah, like, and if you're working with like the same batch of collaborators, like the same directors and same showrunners, and over and over and over again, you're gonna start to develop habits. And I do see this with like actors from GMTV because they do kind of get boxed into these typecasts,
Yeah.
mostly for like merchandising reasons. Honestly, I'm not gonna play. Like, it's definitely so that they
No,
can sell those weird ass plushies and like their light sticks.
I think with GMMTV, a lot of the time, if I hear what the BL is, I can usually about 80% of the time guess who's going to be the couple in it
Yes.
because it sounds like them. Like the Heart Killers very much sounds like First and Cow.
Yes.
And that's actually, like you said, one of the things I love the most about 4 Minutes is that one, the main love interest is like primarily with another studio, but liked the script and got brought in to play this main love interest. So it was like a brand new actor to this like crop of actors. That was really fun. And even the ones who'd been in other BOC projects, so like Bible, Boss, Flies, JJ, they were playing characters that were very different from other characters they had played. And it was really wonderful because it kept the story still a surprise because it didn't feel like, well, I know what a Bible character acts like. It was like, I mean, I can guess what Vegas would do, but Vegas wouldn't have been in this situation in the first place. So like Vegas would have just killed his way out of this situation by now.
He would have grabbed his murder poncho and had a time.
And I love that about him. And I think also too, BOC doesn't go for branded pairings as much, and that's what I really loved about Fuai's character is that he'd been with JJ and Dead Friends Forever. They were T and White, and there is still a relationship there between those two, but it is not the primary like romantic relationship for Fuai's character all the way down. And it was very surprising because I wasn't sure if they were gonna go that route, but it was really wonderful to see like, oh, okay, if the story is better not doing the branded pairing thing, I like that BOC will go the way that makes the story better.
I agree, and that was basically like, yeah, you provided all the like the answer to all the context that I just gave. Like, because yeah, that's my thing. Like, that was one of the things that was exciting about 4 minutes. I felt like this was such a challenge for Bible because it required a lot more subtle acting than a character like Vegas would require. I really liked, seeing Funes play such a different character from White. Like this, I mean, it's deeply, deeply different. And I thought he knocked it out of the park. Yeah, I thought Boss also knocked it out of the park. I've seen him now. This would be his third project that I've seen him in because he was in the movie and he was also in Kin Porsche. And every character he's played in all those have been very different. And it's as someone that just likes film, like I enjoy seeing actors challenged and I enjoy seeing them playing different types of roles. That's just exciting for me. So, aside from just liking the story and liking the filmmaking of 4 minutes, that was another just win for me. 4 minutes by far was my favorite live action series that I watched this year. And those were the top things for me.
Sorry, one final thing I do want to add about 4 Minutes, because of who I am as a person. I also think 4 Minutes had some of like the most interestingly filmed and choreographed sex scenes of anything
Yes.
this year, up there with Playboy. And some of it is just like what they're willing to show on camera. So like you see Boss's naked ass, like actors are clearly not wearing like underwear while they're having sex. And I
They're
like
wearing
that.
socks,
Like
guys. I don't want
they're wearing
anybody to
socks,
think that.
and fucking like Bible's thighs spread like that. That's just a good visual. And then also like the conversations around sex I really liked. Like there's characters mentioning that they're on prep. There's characters saying asking to fuck without a condom. Like there's a much more like grounded in like the reality of sex.
Yeah, great taking a shower before hooking up
Great taking a
time.
shower. Yeah, that is very like often I think missing from some GMMTV, that kind of thing, where there's no like soft filter over sex. It is something people are doing. And they're filmed really beautifully and they're acted really beautifully too. And like again, shout out to Fawaz because I think he had the most sex scenes of anyone in the show and some of like the really intense ones, and he absolutely nailed them.
Yeah, and shout out to like the intimacy coordinator and like the crew of Formats. Formats has a really cool documentary too on the filmmaking. And I love that they highlighted like the director, they highlighted the costume designer, they highlighted the cinematographer, who were all women too. They need to keep that team on other projects because like whatever projects BOC comes out with next, like they really need to keep the team that they have because they're just very talented. Like the costuming was also really good on 4 minutes, and the cinematography was just phenomenal to me, and the direction was really really good. So I really am excited to see more work from like that team because I think when BL Phantom talks about shows, they talk about like the one director and or screenwriter that they
Yeah.
know.
The
And
showrunner to whom
yeah,
they
and
attribute everything.
and sometimes he's just holding a boom mic but somehow is able to give queer angst to a show. uh but yeah, like the team that is on a show often gets, kind of sidelined, and it happens even with like Western media too. I'm not going to pretend that this is like a specific BL thing or whatever, or even a BL fandom thing. People are always attributing all of Martin Scorsese's work to just Martin Scorsese, but he has like a long-standing cinematographer partner that he's always worked with and such, and a long-standing like editor partner that he's always worked with. Anyway, so yeah, those were my top picks, but honorable mentions. I definitely want to give a shout out to Century of Love. I really really enjoyed that show this year. Yeah, I thought I've never seen those actors in anything before. Apparently, they had like some other BL that came out, but I'm lazy and I didn't watch it. But I did watch Century of Love, and it has that Century of Love is kind of like what I wished that Until We Meet Again was.
Yeah, honestly, if you're gonna go with like fated to be together after tragedy, uh watch Century of Love.
I liked this so much. It has the reincarnation thing after tragedy, blah blah. It has that like magical
Magic
realism thing.
stones.
Yeah, it's great. I love the family aspect. Like the family is, they are rooting for these two dudes so hard. I loved the great great granddaughter. She was phenomenal.
The inherent comedy of like a 75-year-old man calling a man who looks to be 27 uncle.
Yes, yes, and I love that too because like in like America at least, like we don't have like that language,
Yeah.
like that hierarchy language and such. So, but in Thailand you do, and it was such a great play on comedy. Like it created so many comedic situations, and that was also just really enjoyable. I really enjoyed the great granddaughter calling her 25-year like old looking great great grandfather a boomer because
Yeah.
she showed belly button and stuff. Um, and she's like,
Yes.
"God, you're such a boomer!" Like, and I
God.
thought the two leads had really great chemistry, and there's a whole bit where like the great great granddad or whatever who's cursed or something like that, magic bullshit. He turns into like a little kid, and the little kid actor was also in 4 minutes, and he is
Oh,
very
really?
talented. And I hope that he goes on to do more things because he is very talented. I'm wishing him the best.
Oh, I love that. I didn't realize
Like, go
that.
forth, small child. Um, and then shout outs to Meet You at the Blossom.
Yes.
I didn't love the show. Like there were some things that I just didn't vibe with entirely with the show, but I loved its gumption. I loved that it's another Don May adaptation that was able to be produced. I loved the
Yeah.
dedication and the passion that the cast and crew had for it. Um, so it's one of those things where it's like, did I absolutely love the narrative? No, but I have a lot of respect.
Yeah, I like that it didn't look cheap because that I think was kind of my fear because it was such a like a interesting combination of like it was made in Thailand but like financed through Taiwan, but like based on like a Chinese property. Like there was definitely some like limboing to get this show made, and I had been worried that it was just, especially with like Danmei that are like the Zhanjia like sword stuff. It's so easy for that to look cheap and to start looking like a spirit Halloween. But it didn't. It looked very good for like the budget it had, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I believe I read that like the director even put up like her house as collateral and stuff to get it funded. And yeah, so I want to give a shout out to that because that was like one of the other shows that I watched. I'd also watched Love C. I did enjoy Love C. Enjoyed it. I didn't love it. And I did really, really like the sign. I did really, really like the sign. I agree with you that it didn't really nail the ending, but I love anything fantasy. I love anything mythological. So I also thought that the CGI in the sign was done very well and very smartly. So I had to give it kudos there. And then the two leads had a lot of chemistry. So I am looking forward to their next show. I hope they get to play again that whole thing. Like I hope they get to play characters that are different from the characters in the sign. And then Dead Friend Forever was another one that I really really enjoyed this year. And we've talked about that, so I'm not gonna dive too deeply into that one. But yeah, all the ones on your list, I except for End of the World with You, I haven't watched that one. So I can't say anything for that one. But I'm sure it's very good because you have impeccable taste.
Thank you. Thank you. There are also a couple movies I think that we both watched that I think are worth throwing out there. Creation of the Gods, fucking fantastic. I think it technically came out in 2023, but I looked it up and I watched it the first week of January. It's fucking amazing. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like there's
So
like
it's
evil emperors and like gods and fucking enlightened beings and two men who are definitely familiar with it, what the other one looks like naked. Um and God's perfect like rope titty harness thing, which had to have been tied by his best
his
friend because
bestie.
no one else at that temple was tying it like that. So we have to tie this man's hands behind his back. We should do this by putting the rope around his neck, and then we're gonna like do like a spiral of the rope down the clavicle, draw it around the boobs. Like we want like lift and separation. Like this is a Wonder Bra fucking rope harness, and then we will tie his hands together. And at no point apparently was anyone like, that feels like it's elaborate. We just want his hands to be demonstrably tied behind his back. Whoever did that was not taking notes at this juncture.
Yeah, so a quick aside, like we I showed this movie through a GIF set because a GIF set passed my dash on like Tumblr or whatever, and it was of that scene, like with the rope,
Yes.
the rope bra. And I was reading the comments because I was like, what is this? And there were so many comments that were like, why is he tied up with the rope bra? And the context is it's because he wants to show that his evil father at this point, who he still believes
Yes.
is good, that he's not holding any weapons, that he's not armed in any way. And somebody in the comments was like, was this all necessary?
It was necessary to me.
So I want to clarify, Creation of the Gods isn't a BL or anything like that.
Oh
It's
no,
not
it's not.
even.
It's not even a Danmei. It was
Yeah.
just a love story to me.
Yes, no, I agree. Like, and it's not queer like Taboo or Kubi is, but it is very very fun, and it's very. I feel like it's very fandom worthy, to be honest. Like all the fanfic on AO3 for it is all in Mandarin, but it's like 5,000 fics, and I have to go through Google Translate just to read anything because nobody's written anything, and I'm very salty about it.
The vibe of it is kind of, it's kind of the epic fantasy vibe, right? So it's kind of in the like fucking Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings kind of like epic stories and gods and monsters and demons and, you know, betrayal and all kinds of stuff. Great,
This
great
is really
fun.
just us pleading with people to please watch the
Please
movie and
write fic
write
in
fanfic.
English. Please, please so much. Or if you can read Mandarin, translate Mandarin fic into English.
Like we're starving. We're starving.
In the same realm, this year I also watched Yin Yang Master Dreams of Eternity,
Yep.
something like that. That is also a very, very fun one with, again, excellent little hats and two dudes who are definitely wildly into each other. Also, some of like the best like antagonist like design for the snake guy with the scales and like the whole vibe. Absolutely wonderful.
And I would say that that one actually is like very queer subtext
Yeah.
because there is that whole scene with the fox demon guy where he's hanging
Yeah.
out with the ladies and then he's hanging out with the dudes.
Yep.
In context, it makes more sense, guys.
It does.
But the director is also like a gay man himself, and I do feel like you could the the two main characters very much parallel the two antagonists, who are like essentially star-crossed lovers and such. And it's I love Dream of Eternity. There's
It's
two
so
Yang Yang
good.
Master movies. They're both on Netflix, or at least they both should be on Netflix. I don't know because Netflix fucking kicked me with their stupid anti-password sharing bullshit. Anyway, but there is two Yin Yang Master films. Dream of Eternity is the one we're talking about, and that one I've watched them both because of course I have, and that one is better. The other one is very boring. I believe they're both based off a video game.
Oh,
Um,
really? I don't know that.
I believe so. It's either a video game or a novel, but I'm pretty sure it's a video game. But Dream of Eternity is the one where like it's better filmed, it's a better story, it's very queer subtextually, in my opinion, and it was just a blast to watch. Like I've rewatched that movie many, many times.
Like, the costumes are also really, really gorgeous, like, yeah, it's just the CGI is also really, really good. It's just a lot of fun if you like big action fantasy.
And it's also genuinely heartfelt.
It is, like, the ending is, like, with the, like, arrow shooting thing, it's just very, like, meaningful.
Yeah, like the Empress, she got me. That story got me. So yeah, so those are my honorable mentions.
The only other specifically Asian movie that I would like to mention, is Marry My Dead Husband,
Yes, yes.
which is about a I didn't know about this practice, and I think it's very funny, of, like, where the family of this guy who has died leaves, like, a red envelope on the ground, and whoever picks it up, they're like, "Ha! You have to marry now." And it's very funny to me because it's like, "Well, I'm a man," and they're like, "So, what? You could be homophobic about it? It's 2024. You picked up the red envelope, motherfucker. You're obligated."
The grannies are amazing. I you have to put in the context that this is a group of grannies that are telling this to this stranger. Um,
Who's like a cop. Very like toxic masculinity, like, "Meh," and he's like, "You're marrying my dead grandson." And he's like, "No." And they're like, "No, but you picked up the envelope and you are."
like you don't have a choice, honey. Yeah, Marry My Dead Husband is also on Netflix. It's also very good. I like what they did with the female character too. I would say that it's like a interesting film for like it's a lot of subversions that are going on,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I believe that that Thailand is remaking it with the two
Oh,
actors
really?
from I Sunset About You.
I Told Sunset About You? Oh yeah, with PP Crit and Billiken because I never lose.
You truly don't like.
This was like a year of wins for me in terms of like future projects. It's also like in the movie, he marries this guy, and then like the ghost of the guy actually shows up and is like, "You need to help me figure out why I died, and also help me do things like make sure my grandma doesn't unlock my phone to see all of the dick pics that I've received in my life." And it
Yeah,
becomes very
all of his
heartfelt.
sex tapes.
Yeah, like it becomes very heartfelt. There's like confronting an old ex and like that fucking line, like, "You're making Mao cry," like
Oh
fucking
my
got to
god.
me. There's and like the ending is very much about like sacrifice and when he's like fucking moving the cars out of the way. Like there's a moment where the straight cop like is asked a question and he like calls the ghost his husband, and it's very sweet. It's very heartfelt.
Mhm.
Also, he was the in previous lives they were a master and his dog, which is another very funny thing that comes up a couple times.
Yeah, it's a very, very heartfelt film. It's genuinely funny. I like both actors a lot. Allegedly, there is going to be a sequel. I don't know how that's going to work unless they bring Mao Mao back to life. Because I would love to see them get together, to be honest. Uh,
I would too.
but
So
right.
much.
But yeah, they're remaking it with the actors from I Told Sunset About You. I don't know if it's going to be a TV show or if it's going to be a movie. This remake. I don't think there's a ton of information.
You'd have to add a lot to pad that out to be a TV show.
Yeah,
Like,
you have to add quite a bit. I would rather it just be a movie, personally. I think I'd like to see more movies from like just BL
yeah, I
movies
would
in
too.
general. But yeah, that's a good one to add, like because I also really really enjoyed that. Also, there's a music video that's kind of like a It's kind of like a prequel to the movie, but it's about Mao Mao and his grandmother, and him telling his grandmother that he's gay, and like it's a misdirection in the music video, and you have to watch it because it's amazing. She becomes DJ Pride Grandma. It's
Yeah, DJ
phenomenal.
Pride Grandma.
Like it's absolutely great, and I definitely recommend that as well.
Okay. So yeah, sorry, that was the final like thing on the list of stuff that I wanted to make sure to mention.
Thank God your memory is peak because mine is not.
It was just me scrolling back through my Tumblr being like, what did I watch? What did I watch? Hey guys, so while we were recording this, we learned a really fun fact, which is that 3 hours is the maximum length of recording we can do. So, because of that, we are actually splitting this into two parts. So, this is part one. Part two, with everything else we talked about, will be at some point in January. All right. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you in the next year. Bye.